Happy coding.
Hey there, Kevin here from Happy Coding, and in this video I am going to talk about a tool called GitHub Desktop, which is a tool that lets you work with your GitHub repos and your GitHub files locally on your own computer. So I'm just going to dive in. I think, where are we? Right now we have just learned about the profile README feature. That's in my profile, in my GitHub profile, I have this sort of section that I can customize because I have created a repository with my own username and it contains a file, or in my case, it contains a few files. So if I edit that readme.md file, then it goes and modifies what shows up in my profile. And that's cool. That works. And I can go in here and I can go to readme.md and I can edit it using this pencil. And that's what I showed in sort of the last video. And that works. And for this, if all I have is one file, that's actually probably fine. However, as you start to work with like more files and more involved projects, it actually gets really annoying to have to edit the page in GitHub's online editor. And it also, there's a downside of whenever you save in GitHub's editor, it's live, right? You're pushing to your repo. So there's no way to like make a bunch of changes and then test them out. And then only when you're done, show them to the rest of the world. So with all of that in mind, the alternative, instead of editing your files directly in GitHub, is to use GitHub on your desktop. So if I open up a new tab and I just type in GitHub desktop, then sure, this first link, download GitHub desktop. And if I just went to the home page, here it is, and there's a download now button. Okay, cool. And this is a tool that lets you work with your GitHub repos like on your own computer instead of in the GitHub webpage. So go ahead and download that. And I'm probably not going to because I've already downloaded it, but download it and then install it and set it up and stuff. The first time you launch it, it will likely ask for your GitHub username and password. So, log in, do all of that good stuff, and then come back. Okay, so go do that. You can pause the video or whatever you want to do, but go download GitHub Desktop and install it. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you've been able to download GitHub Desktop and install it, and now we are going to actually use it. So I'm going to go to the top of my GitHub repo. In this case, I'm going to my GitHub profile README repo, which has the same name as my username. But what I want to focus on is this code button here. So let's see, if I click this, I have a few options and I have a link to the URL, which is just the URL of this page, but I also have this button, open with GitHub Desktop. So I'm going to click that. And there it is. So it sort of automatically pops up a window that is asking me to clone my repository. So I'm going to click that clone button. And what that's doing is cloning my repo, which is a fancy word for it's downloading the repo onto my computer. So looks like it worked. I already have it. So let's see, is there a way to just do it easily from here? So sure, view the files of your repository in Explorer. So I'm going to click this button, show in Explorer. And that popped up a directory here on my computer. So it is, it kind of depends on your settings, but for me, I put it in my documents directory, and then I have GitHub directory, and then I have Kevin Workman in here. So this Kevin Workman is my repository because it has the same name as, my username because it's my profile README. So I have my images here, and this .git folder is like settings and stuff, so you can basically ignore it. And I have my readme.md. So now that I have this file, I can edit it. I can edit it using, whatever editor came with my computer. So I could use like Notepad, or I think if you're on a Mac, it's called like Text or Text Edit or something. You can also download text editors if you want to. But you can use whatever text editor you want to use. So I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to open with, let's see. So at first I'm just going to do Notepad, I guess, just to show you like the most kind of basic view of it. So I'm going to say open with Notepad, and let me get that over on the right monitor. And here it is. Here is my readme.md file open in Notepad on my own computer. And I can edit this. I can say, I don't know, I'm not going to get too creative. I'm just going to say like add a p tag and say this was edited on my computer. I'm not being super creative, but it's fine. So I'm going to save this. Okay, I'm going to hit Control S, or I'm going to go to File and then Save. And then I'm going to go back to GitHub Desktop. So that's still open back here. And what GitHub Desktop does is it like detects the change. It says, "Oh, you changed one of the files that's in your repo. So do you want to push that?" So it sort of highlights it here. You've got like the file that you changed on the left, and then I wish I could make this bigger, but I can't. Or can I? No, I can't. But in green, it sort of highlights the line you added. If you delete stuff, it'll highlight that in red, but it kind of shows you like, here's what you did. And now what I want to do, so I've changed my file. I added, this was edited on my computer. But that was only on my local machine. It's only on my local file system. So if I hit refresh here, I don't see my change. I don't see like this was edited on my local computer. Like I don't see that because I haven't yet pushed that. Like no one else can see my change. So if I go back to GitHub Desktop, I can upload my change. I can push my change to my repository. So I could enter in like a message here to have like a note for myself to remind myself of what I changed, but I'm just going to hit commit to main. And then I'm going to click the push button. So I've created a commit, which bundles up my change into like a package that like other people would be able to see. But I haven't actually uploaded that change. So I'm going to click either push origin up here, or they have another button here, push origin. So I'm going to push that change to my repo. So I'm going to push it. That takes just a second. And okay, looks like that's done. And now I'm going to go back to GitHub and I'm going to refresh. So I'm going to hit refresh here. I'm in my repo. And now I see indeed this was edited on my computer. And because I am editing my GitHub profile README here, that should work. That should show up in my profile. And indeed, this was edited on my computer. So that's the flow. That's the flow of working with a repo locally on your own computer and modifying the files and then uploading them to your repo. So right now it might not seem like super obvious like why that was better, but I will say that for this like small example, honestly, it's not that much better. But as you get into sort of more involved projects, as you get into like web development, it's really handy to be able to edit your files locally, test your changes locally, and then push your changes only when you are like happy with the result. So far, I used Notepad to edit my file. And that's, I think, fine for sort of small projects like this one. But there are many text editors out there, and everyone has a different favorite. So I recommend just kind of looking around and looking for them. I will say that the one I tend to use is a text editor called Atom. But you can also use other things. There's like VS Code is another really popular one. And if I just type in, I don't know, like coding text editor, There are many options. So VS Code, that's the one I was just talking about. Sublime Text is another one. All kinds of them. These are like text editors that are specifically designed for code. So what does that look like? Let me show you. So if I open up my readme.md, I'm going to open that with Atom. And that's popping up over on my other desktop. And yeah, okay. So it's not super different than Notepad, but you get some of these like sort of syntax aware features where it might highlight the code or align it. In this case, it's just an MD file. If I had an HTML file, it would kind of use like syntax highlighting. But the idea is that you can edit it in whatever editor you prefer. And that's another kind of benefit of working with it locally, because you're no longer limited to GitHub's online editor. You can use any editor you want. So I'll make one more change here and I'll say something like, maybe I'll just delete that line actually. So I'll delete it and then I'll save it, Control S, and then I'll go back to GitHub Desktop. And now I see sort of the inverse of what I saw before, where I see this highlighted in red because I deleted it. So I'm just going to commit that to main and then push. And then I'm going to go back to GitHub and refresh. And now I no longer see that that little message that I put. Okay, so that is GitHub Desktop in a nutshell. There are many more, like there are other like corners to this, like, you know, finding a text editor that you like, or working with things like branches, like different branches of your file system. But really the flow that we just worked through is going to get you pretty far, where you start with a repo, you clone that repo to your local computer, then you mess with the files. You can either like add files, you can edit them, you know, whatever you want. You get it into a state that you're happy with, and then you push it back to GitHub, and then you refresh to see the changes. So I used our profile README as like the example because it's kind of easier to work with. But as we get into GitHub pages, that flow will be like, it'll come in handy a lot more. So yeah, we'll see what that looks like when we get there in the very next video. But until then, as always, happy coding.